My 23rd birthday was supposed to be a day of celebration, maybe a quiet moment to reflect on another year of grinding through college and work. Instead, it turned into the day my world flipped upside down. I was sitting in the back of Desert Brew, the coffee shop where I sling lattes, when my phone buzzed with a text from my dad, Greg. "Sold your laptop." My heart stopped. That laptop, a Dell XPS I'd saved for over a year, was my lifeline, holding my thesis, my job applications, everything. Then came the kicker. "Also, you're paying Sophie's tuition, $7,000, 0 cents by Monday." I typed back, "No way." His reply, "Then get out, you're cut off." Have you ever had a moment where your family betrayed you? Stick around, because this is the story of how I took back my life. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm Emma Carter, a 23-year-old senior studying communications at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Life's been a hustle. 2 part-time jobs, one as a barista at Desert Brew and another as a freelance social media assistant, just to keep up with tuition and bills. I've been living at home with my parents, Greg and Linda, and my younger sister, Sophie, to save money. Sounds practical, right? But let me tell you, it's been anything but fair. My parents have always had a soft spot for Sophie, their 19-year-old golden child who can do no wrong. Me? I'm the responsible one, the one who's supposed to understand why my needs always come second. Growing up, I got used to it. Like when I turned 16, and my birthday party got canceled because Sophie needed a new outfit for her dance recital. Or when I was 18 and the $2,000 0 cents my aunt gave me for graduation mysteriously went towards Sophie's first car. I learned to swallow my disappointment, to keep my head down and work harder. The morning of my 23rd birthday started like any other. I rolled out of bed at 6 a.m., through themed coffee shop where the smell of roasted beans and the hum of early customers were my daily soundtrack. My mom, Linda, was in the kitchen, glued to her phone as usual. "Happy birthday, Emma," she mumbled, barely looking up from her Instagram feed. "Thanks, Mom," I said, hoping for a little more. Maybe a card, a hug, anything. Nothing came. Instead, she added, "Don't forget to drive Sophie to her art class later." I nodded, biting back the sting. On the counter was my laptop, my pride and joy. I'd scraped together every tip from Desert Brew for 18 months to buy that Dell XPS. It had everything. My thesis research on digital marketing trends, my portfolio for job applications, even photos from my high school days. I zipped it into my bag and headed out, trying to shake off the familiar feeling of being invisible. Desert Brew was buzzing that morning, with regulars grabbing their morning coffee and students cramming for exams. My coworkers, though, made my birthday feel special. Sarah, the baker, slipped me a chocolate chip cookie with a candle in it, and my manager, Tom, handed me a $20 0 cents gift card to Bookman's, my favorite used bookstore. "You're killing it, Emma," Tom said, his grin warm. "We're lucky to have you." Their kindness hit me harder than I expected, especially after Mom's half-hearted acknowledgement. It was a reminder that some people saw my effort, even if my family didn't. I was halfway through my shift, sipping coffee in the alley out back, when my phone lit up with Dad's text. "Sold your laptop, Sophie needed a new phone. Be grateful we've got you covered." I read it again, thinking I'd misunderstood. My fingers shook as I called him, but it went straight to voicemail. Then another text. "Also, you're paying Sophie's tuition, $7,000, 0 cents by Monday." The alley spun around me. That laptop wasn't just a gadget, it was my future. My thesis, my applications, my memories, all gone because Sophie needed the latest iPhone, and $7,000, 0 cents? I was barely keeping up with my own tuition, working 2 jobs while Sophie flunked out of community college twice because she was too busy partying. My chest tightened, tears prickling my eyes. What gave them the right to sell my stuff? To demand I fund Sophie's life? I typed back, "No way." Dad's response was instant, "Then get out. You're cut off." Just like that. On my birthday, I was homeless. I finished my shift on autopilot, forcing smiles as I served coffee, my mind racing. Where would I go? How would I finish my degree without my thesis? As I hung up my apron, Tom noticed my daze. "You okay, Emma?" he asked. "Just family stuff," I lied, managing a weak smile. But as I walked to my beat-up Toyota Corolla, a car I'd bought myself, I knew this was bigger than family stuff. This was the biggest crisis of my life. I drove straight to my best friend Mia Lopez's apartment, tears blurring the Tucson streets. Mia's been my rock since we bonded over bad cafeteria food in high school. When she opened the door, one look at my face told her everything. "What did they do now?" she asked, pulling me into a hug. I collapsed on her couch, showing her the texts. "Your dad sold your laptop?" Mia's voice shot up. "The one you saved for forever, and now they want you to pay Sophie's tuition? That's insane." I poured out years of frustration. Sophie was always the priority, her dance lessons, her car, her endless second chances, while I was expected to be the responsible one, paying bills and picking up the slack. Mia listened, her eyes narrowing. "This isn't just favoritism, Emma. This is abuse. They're using you." Her words hit hard, crystallizing what I'd felt but never named. I had to do something, but while sitting on Mia's worn-out couch, with the Tucson skyline twinkling through her apartment window, I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. My dad's texts were still burning in my mind, selling my laptop, demanding I pay Sophie's tuition, kicking me out on my birthday. Mia handed me a mug of chamomile tea, her dark eyes fierce with indignation. "Emma, this isn't just your family being unfair. This is wrong, like legally wrong." I took a shaky sip, trying to process her words. I'd always known my parents favored Sophie, but hearing it framed as abuse hit differently. It was like a fog lifting, revealing years of resentment I'd buried to keep the peace. "I don't even know where to start," I admitted. "They've always been like this, but selling my laptop? That's a new low." Mia leaned forward, her voice steady. "Let's start with the truth. Tell me everything. How long has this been going on?" As I started talking, memories flooded back, each one sharper than the last. Growing up, Sophie was the golden child, the one who got new clothes, dance lessons, and endless second chances. I was the reliable one, expected to pick up the slack without complaint. Take my 16th birthday, for example. I'd been so excited for a small party with friends at our house, nothing fancy, just pizza and music. But the day before, Sophie came home crying because she needed a new costume for her dance recital. Mom canceled my party without a second thought, saying, "Sophie's performance is a big deal, Emma. You'll have other birthdays." I spent the day driving her to the recital, watching from the sidelines as she twirled in a sparkly leotard my parents paid for with money I'd contributed from my summer job I didn't even get a cake that year. Then there was my high school graduation. I'd worked my butt off, earning a partial scholarship to the University of Arizona for my grades and leadership in the school newspaper. I was so proud, walking across the stage to accept my diploma, thinking my parents would be there cheering. But when I looked out at the crowd, their seats were empty. Later, I found out they left early to take Sophie to a cheerleading tryout. Mom brushed it off with, "Oh, Emma, you know how important this is for Sophie's confidence." My scholarship announcement, the result of 4 years of grinding, didn't even get a mention at dinner. Instead, we talked about Sophie's new cheer uniform. That night, I cried in my room, feeling like my achievements were invisible. The pattern didn't stop when I started college. I took on 2 jobs, barista at Desert Brew and freelance social media work, because my parents said they couldn't afford to help with tuition. Meanwhile, Sophie, who is 19 and already flunking out of community college for the second time, got a brand new iPhone, a car, and private art lessons. When I asked why, Dad would say, "Sophie's still finding herself. You're doing fine, Emma, fine." I was barely sleeping, juggling classes and work while Sophie partied with her friends and crashed her car, twice. The worst part? My parents kept borrowing from my bank account, just for groceries, Mom would say, or, "We'll pay you back when Dad's next commission comes in." Spoiler, they never did. Over the years, those loans added up, but I didn't have the heart to confront them. I thought that's what family did, help each other out. Back at Desert Brew that morning, before the texts from Dad, my coworkers had been my lifeline. Sarah, the baker with a knack for making everyone smile, had slipped me that cookie with a candle, singing happy birthday off-key with the other baristas. Tom, my manager, had given me that Bookman's gift card saying, "You're one of our best, Emma, keep shining." Their kindness meant everything, especially when my own family couldn't be bothered. It was a stark contrast. People who barely knew me saw my worth, while my parents treated me like an ATM. As I sat with Mia, recounting these moments, I felt a knot in my stomach loosen. "I've been letting them walk all over me," I said, my voice cracking. Why didn't I see it before? Nia reached for my hand. Because you love them, but love doesn't mean letting them take everything from you. You need to stand up, Emma, for yourself. Mia's words lit a spark in me. I wasn't just hurt, I was angry. Angry that my laptop, which I'd worked so hard for, was gone. Angry that they expected me to pay for Sophie's tuition while I was drowning in my own expenses. Angry that I'd spent years being the good daughter, only to be kicked out when I said no. But with that anger came living like this, always giving, always sacrificing. Mia poured us more tea, her apartment cozy with string lights and mismatched furniture, and we started to brainstorm. You need to get your stuff out of that house, she said. And you need to make them face what they've done. I nodded, my mind racing. I had some cash hidden away. $2,500 0 cents I'd stashed under a floorboard in my room because I'd learned not to trust my parents with my bank account. But it wasn't just about getting my things. I needed to do something bigger, something that would force my family to see the truth. As the Tucson sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow through Mia's window, I felt a shift inside me. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to my family's demands. I was planning to take control. I didn't know exactly what I'd do yet, but I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I'm going back tonight, I told Mia, my voice steadier than I felt. I'll grab what I need and leave something behind, something they can't ignore. Mia raised an eyebrow, a grin spreading across her face. That's my girl. Whatever you're planning, I've got your back. As I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, I felt a mix of fear and determination. Whatever happened next, I was done being my family's doormat. Driving back to my parents' house that night, the Tucson streets felt eerily quiet, the desert air cool against my skin as I gripped the steering wheel of my Corolla. Mia's words echoed in my head, make them face what they've done. My heart was pounding, a mix of fear and resolve. I wasn't just going back to grab my stuff. I was going to leave something behind, something that would force my family to see the truth about how they'd treat. My laptop was gone, sold without my permission, and they thought they could demand $7,000 0 cents for Sophie's tuition like I was their personal bank. No more. I parked a block away from the house, not wanting to alert anyone. The streetlights cast long shadows across the driveway, and Sophie's bedroom light glowed on the second floor. I took a deep breath, slipped my key into the front door, and stepped inside as quiet. The house felt different, like it wasn't mine anymore. The familiar creak of the floorboards, the faint smell of Mom's lavender candles, it all seemed distant, like I was a stranger. I crept upstairs to my room, my heart racing as I pushed the door open. And there was Sophie, standing in front of my mirror, wearing my favorite leather jacket, the one I'd bought for job interviews. My clothes were strewn across the bed, drawers yanked open, half empty. All I have doing? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Sophie jumped, spinning around, but her expression turned smug. Oh, it's you, just seeing what fits. Dad said you're moving out anyway. Her casual tone, like my life being upended was no big deal, made my blood boil. That doesn't mean my stuff is yours, I shot back, trying to keep my cool. Sophie shrugged, smoothing the jacket. Mom said I could take what I want. You don't need fancy clothes for pouring coffee. I wanted to scream, to tear the jacket off her, but I held it together. This wasn't about clothes. It was about respect, boundaries, and years of entitlement. Where's my laptop? I asked, my voice low. Sophie smirked, twirling to check her reflection. Dad sold it to Mr. Jenkins next door. His kid needed it for college, got $1,000 0 cents for it. My new phone was only $700 0 cents, so I'm keeping the rest. My $1,800 0 cents laptop sold for $1,000 0 cents and Sophie got pocket money? I felt sick. Did it ever occur to anyone that it wasn't Dad's to sell? I asked. Sophie rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic, Emma. It's just a laptop. Besides, you live here rent-free. That was the last straw. Not anymore, I said, pulling my suitcase from under the bed, and I've never lived here rent-free. While Sophie kept trying on my clothes, tossing snarky comments about my boring style, I moved fast. I packed essentials, clothes, toiletries, my birth certificate, a few photos of me and Mia from high school. Then I knelt by my desk, prying up the loose floorboard where I'd hidden $2,500, 0 cents in cash. My parents had a habit of borrowing from my bank account, so I'd learned to keep money out of their reach. Next, I turned to the box in my closet, the one I'd been filling for years. It held everything. Bank statements showing withdrawals I didn't authorize, receipts for household bills I'd paid, notes about loans my parents never repaid. It was a paper trail of their financial abuse, starting from my first job at 16. I'd kept it all, not because I planned to use it, but because deep down, I knew I might need proof someday. I worked through the night, my hands steady despite the anger simmering inside. At a 24-hour print shop downtown, I made copies of every document, organizing them into a neat folder. Bank statements showed $9,500, 0 cents my parents had taken over 5 years, always with excuses like emergency repairs or just until pay. Receipts proved I'd been covering 65% of the household bills, electricity, internet, groceries, for the past 2 years, even as a full-time student. There were notes about loans for Sophie's art lessons, Mom's car repairs, Dad's gambling debts, none repaid, and then, the kicker, records of my college fund, $20,000, 0 cent my grandparents had set aside for me, drained by my parents for Sophie's failed college attempts and their own expenses. I included the receipt for my laptop, the warranty in my name, and a screenshot showing its real value, $1,800, 0 cents. By 3 a.m. I was back at the house, the folder complete. The place was silent, Sophie's light finally off. I made one last sweep of my room, grabbing a necklace from my grandma that I couldn't leave behind. Then I carried my suitcase to the car, my steps quiet but deliberate. Before, I left a folder on the kitchen table, right where they'd see it in the morning. On top, I left a note, simple but clear. Note: as I backed out of the driveway, the stars bright above the desert, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Grief for the family I'd never really had, fear for what came next, but also a spark of freedom. For the first time, I was choosing myself. By the time my family woke up, I'd be at Mia's, starting over. Whatever happened next, I was done letting them walk all over me. I woke up on Mia's pull-out couch, the Tucson sunrise filtering through her blinds, my body heavy with exhaustion but my mind racing. I'd barely slept, maybe 3 hours, after leaving that folder on the kitchen table. It was like dropping a bomb and walking away, knowing the explosion was coming but not sure how big it'd be. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the coffee table. 27 missed calls, 43 texts, 5 voicemails. They'd found it. I glanced at Mia, who was already up, brewing coffee in her tiny kitchen. "They're freaking out, aren't they?" she said, sliding a mug toward me. I nodded, my stomach twisting as I checked the screen. The first text was from Sophie at 7:14 a.m. "What did you do? Mom and Dad are losing it." I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the chaos I'd unleashed. The folder I'd left behind wasn't just a collection of papers, it was a reckoning. Bank statements showing $9,500, 0 cents. My parents had taken from my account over 5 years, each withdrawal marked with lies like house emergency or temporary loan. Receipts proving I'd paid 65% of the household bills, electricity, internet, groceries, for 2 years despite being a full-time student scraping by on barista tips. Notes detailing loans for Sophie's art lessons, Mom's car repairs, Dad's gambling debts. None ever repaid, totaling thousands. The worst was the proof about my college fund, $20,000, 0 cents from my grandparents, drained to cover Sophie's failed community college stints and my parents' credit card debt. I'd even included the receipt for my Dell XPS, the warranty in my name, and a screenshot showing its real value. $1,800, 0 cents, not the $1,000, 0 cents Dad got from Mr. Jenkins. That folder was my voice, loud and undeniable after years of silence. My phone kept buzzing, each notification like a jab to the gut. Sophie's texts came in a frantic stream. "Dad's face is red as hell. Mom's crying. They're saying you're suing them? Are you serious? Call home now." Mom's voicemails started angry, her voice sharp like it was when I forgot to do the dishes. "Emery Carter, you get home this instant and explain this nonsense. How dare you leave such lies on our table?" But by the third message, her tone shifted to panic. "Emma, please, we need to talk as a family. Your father's upset, but there's an explanation for everything. Call us back." By the fifth, she was almost pleading. "Sweetheart, we love you, let's work this out." I played the messages for Mia, who shook her head. "Classic guilt trip," she said. "They're freaking out because you call them on their crap." Dad's texts were different, cold and cutting. "You ungrateful kid. After all we've done, this is how you repay us? This is a gross misrepresentation and you know it." His next message was worse. "If you keep this up, you'll regret it." I stared at the words, my hands trembling. Regret it? What more could they take from me? They'd already sold my laptop, taken my money, and kicked me out. But beneath the anger, a tiny part of me felt guilty, like I'd betrayed them by exposing the truth. That's what they'd always done. Made me feel like I owed them, like my sacrifices were just part of being family. Mia saw my face and grabbed my phone. "Don't let them get in your head, Emma. You did the right thing. That folder? It's proof you're not crazy." As I sipped my coffee, trying to steady myself, I thought about what that folder meant. It wasn't just about the money. Though $9,500, 0 cents in unauthorized withdrawals, thousands in unpaid loans, and a stolen college fund was bad enough. It was about the years of being treated as less than, the birthdays ignored, the achievements overlooked, the constant message that Sophie's wants trumped my needs. I'd spent so long trying to be the good daughter, thinking if I worked harder they'd see me. But they never did. Leaving that folder was my way of saying, "I see you now, and I'm done." Still, sitting there on Mia's couch, I felt torn. Part of me liberated, part of me terrified of what came next. Would they dismiss the folder, twist it to make me the villain? Or would they finally face the truth? Mia handed me a plate of toast, her voice gentle but firm. "You've started something big, Emma. They can't ignore this. But you need to be ready for what's coming." I nodded, my resolve hardening. I'd spent years enabling their behavior by staying quiet. That folder was my first step toward breaking free, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. My phone buzzed again, a voicemail from someone unexpected. It was my grandma Margaret, my mom's mother, who rarely got involved in family drama. Her voice was sharp, furious. "Emma, it's Grandma. I just talked to your parents and I'm appalled. I had no idea it was this bad. I'm coming to Tucson tomorrow with a lawyer. Don't respond to them until we talk. Call me." I played it for Mia, my eyes wide. "Grandma Margaret's pissed," Mia said, almost laughing. "This just got real." Grandma Margaret's voicemail left me stunned, her voice crackling with a fury I'd never heard before. She was always the peacekeeper, sending holiday cards and baking pies at family reunions. But now she was coming to Tucson with a lawyer? I replayed the message for Mia, who let out a low whistle. "Your grandma's about to go scorched earth," she said, half grinning. "This is bigger than you thought, Emma." I nodded, my coffee growing cold in my hands. The folder I'd left on the kitchen table had done more than stir up drama. It had cracked open secrets my parents couldn't hide anymore. As Mia and I sat in her cozy apartment, the weight of what I'd started sank in. I'd exposed years of financial abuse, but what would happen next? Would my family double down, or would someone finally see my side? That afternoon, my phone rang again. This time it was my Aunt Rachel, Mom's older sister. Rachel's always been the cool aunt, a single interior designer who travels for work and sends me quirky postcards from places like Santa Fe and Sedona. "Emma, honey, are you okay?" she asked, her voice warm but edged with concern. I told her everything. The laptop, the tuition demand, the folder, the texts. She listened quietly, then, "I'm not surprised, but I'm furious. Your parents have been mismanaging money for years, but this? It's a new level." Then, she dropped a bombshell. "Did you know your grandparents set up trust funds for you and Sophie when you were born? Equal amounts, meant for college and your future. You were supposed to get access at 18, but your dad convinced the trustees you weren't ready." I froze, my mind reeling. "A trust fund? For me? What happened to it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Rachel's tone hardened. "Your parents drained yours to pay for Sophie's expenses, her car, her art classes, her failed college attempts, after she burned through her own fund. They've been lying to you, Emma, saying you needed loans for school while they used your money. I felt like I'd been all those nights I stayed up late, juggling 2 jobs to avoid student debt while my parents had a fund meant for me, and they'd given it to Sophie, who partied her way through community college." Mia, overhearing, mouthed, "That's messed up." Rachel went on. "Your grandma Margaret found out this morning when I called her about the folder. She's livid. She's flying in tomorrow to deal with this, and she's bringing her lawyer to audit the trusts. The scale of the betrayal hit me like a wave. It wasn't just the $9,500.00 they'd taken from my bank account or the laptop they'd sold. They'd stolen my future, my grandparents' gift, and lied about it for years. I felt tears prick my eyes, but anger burned hotter. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I asked Rachel. "Your parents kept it quiet," she said. "They told the family you were fine paying your own way, that you wanted to be independent. I should have questioned it sooner." "I'm so sorry, Emma." Her apology meant something, but it couldn't undo the years of manipulation. Rachel promised to meet me at Mia's the next day with Grandma Margaret. "We're fixing this," she said. "You're not alone anymore." After we hung up, I sat in silence, processing the trust fund revelation. Mia put a hand on my shoulder. "This is huge, Emma. Your parents can't talk their way out of this one." She was right, but I couldn't shake the knot in my chest. Exposing the truth felt like freedom, but it also meant facing a family fractured beyond repair. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Sophie. Unlike her earlier frantic messages, this one was different. "I didn't know about any of this. I'm so confused. Can we talk?" I stared at it, unsure what to feel. Sophie, the golden child, had always been part of the problem, taking my clothes, my money, my parents' attention. But her text sounded genuine. Was she starting to see the truth too? I showed Mia the message and she raised an eyebrow. "Could be a trap, but maybe she's waking up. Your folder probably shook her world too." I hesitated, not ready to respond. For years, Sophie had been shielded by my parents' lies, told she deserved everything while I was the responsible one. Maybe she was as much a victim of their manipulation as I was, just in a different way. I didn't trust her yet, but for the first time, I wondered if we could ever be real sisters, not just rivals created by our parents. As the day wore on, I felt a shift inside me. Grandma Margaret's arrival, Rachel's support, and even Sophie's text were signs that my folder had done more than caused chaos. It had started a chain reaction. My parents couldn't hide anymore, not with Margaret's lawyer digging into the trust funds. I was still scared, still hurt, but I felt stronger too. I'd spent years being invisible, but now my voice was being heard, loud and clear. Mia made us tacos for dinner, and we sat on her balcony, the desert sky stretching wide above us. "You're rewriting your story, Emma," she said, raising her glass of iced tea. "And it's just getting started." I clinked my glass against hers, a small smile breaking through. The next morning, as I packed my suitcase on Mia's living room floor, the reality of starting over hit me. I was 23, homeless, and my laptop, my lifeline for school and work, was gone. But Grandma Margaret's promise to come with a lawyer and Aunt Rachel's revelation about the trust fund gave me a flicker of hope. I wasn't alone anymore. Mia, bleary-eyed from staying up with me, handed me a granola bar. "You're moving forward, Emma. That's what matters." She was right. I couldn't change what my parents had done, but I could build something new. That afternoon, Rachel pulled up in her sleek SUV, insisting I stay with her in Phoenix, a 2-hour drive from Tucson. "My guest room's yours as long as you need," she said, her warm smile easing the knot in my chest. I hugged Mia goodbye, promising to text, and climbed into Rachel's car, ready for whatever came next. Phoenix felt like a fresh start, its sprawling cityscape and desert sun a contrast to Tucson's quieter vibe. Rachel's apartment, with its modern furniture and colorful art, was a haven. Over dinner that first night, take-out burritos from a local spot, she laid out a plan. "You need financial security first," she said, passing me a napkin. "I know a lawyer who can help protect what's yours, and I'll set you up with a new bank account." The next day, we met Samantha Torres, a financial advisor with a no-nonsense attitude. Samantha reviewed the documents I'd copied from the folder, her pen tapping as she read. "This is textbook financial exploitation," she said. "It's common in families, but it's still wrong. We'll secure your current assets and prepare for the trust fund audit." By the end of the week, I had a new account at a bank my parents couldn't touch, with fraud alerts set up. It felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Work was my next hurdle. I loved Desert Brew, but the pay wasn't enough to cover rent and tuition, especially without my laptop. Tom, my manager, came through with a connection. "My buddy runs a tech startup in Phoenix," he said over the phone. "They need a social media assistant." I told him, "You're a rock star." I was nervous walking into the interview at Nexus Innovations, a sleek office buzzing with coders and creatives, or Rachel's blazer, my resume printed at a library, and prayed my lack of a laptop wouldn't tank me. The interviewer, Lauren Chen, leaned forward, her eyes kind but sharp. "Tell me about a challenge you faced," she said. I took a breath and gave a measured version of my story, leaving home, losing my laptop but staying focused on school and work. "You kept a 3.7 GPA while working 2 jobs and dealing with that," Lauren said, impressed. "That's the grit we want." They offered me the job on the spot. $25.00 an hour, flexible hours, and a loaner laptop until I could replace mine. It was double what I made at Desert Brew. Friends rallied around me too. Mia drove up that weekend with a care package, snacks, a used Chromebook from her coworker, and a playlist of badass anthems to keep me going. My college friend Alex, a computer science major, offered to check cloud backups for my thesis files. "You've got this, Emma," he texted, sending a link to recovered drafts. Their support was overwhelming, a reminder that I wasn't defined by my family's betrayal. Rachel introduced me to Dr. Karen Lee, a therapist specializing in family dynamics. In our first session, Dr. Lee's calm voice cut through my chaos. "Your family put you in a scapegoat role," she explained. "Sophie was the golden child while you were expected to sacrifice everything." It was like she'd read my life. "Why me?" I asked, the question I'd carried for years. "It's not about you," she said. "It's their unresolved issues playing out." Those sessions became my anchor, helping me untangle years of guilt and resentment. As I settled into Rachel's guest room, surrounded by her vibrant throw pillows and desert plants, I started rebuilding piece by piece. I enrolled in an online thesis extension, using the Chromebook to rewrite my research. At Nexus, I thrived, crafting social media campaigns that got thousands of likes. Each paycheck went into my new account, a small but growing safety net. For the first time, I felt in control, not just surviving, but building a future on my terms. But even as I moved forward, I couldn't ignore the storm brewing back in Tucson. Grandma Margaret was in town, digging into the trust funds with her lawyer, and Sophie's text, "Can we talk?" lingered unanswered on my phone. I wasn't ready to face her yet, but I knew the truth was reshaping our family whether I was there or not. A week into my new life in Phoenix, as I was settling into the rhythm of my job at Nexus Innovations and therapy with Dr. Lee, my phone pinged with another text from Sophie. "I'm in Phoenix. Can I see you? I need to explain." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Sophie had been the face of my parents' favoritism for years, taking my clothes, my money, my chances. But her earlier text, the one saying she didn't know, stuck with me. What if she was starting to see through our parents' lies? I was staying at Aunt Rachel's, surrounded by her colorful art and desert plants, and I felt safe enough to take the risk. I texted back, "Meet me at Rachel's at 3. Rachel raised an eyebrow when I told her, "You sure you're ready for this?" she asked. I wasn't, but I needed to know what Sophie had to say. When Sophie arrived, she looked different. No makeup, no confident swagger. She stood in Rachel's entryway, clutching her purse, her eyes red-rimmed. "Can we talk alone?" she asked, her voice small. Rachel gave me a nod and slipped out to run errands. We sat at the kitchen table, the silence heavy between us. Finally, Sophie spoke. "I didn't know, Emma, about the money, the trust fund, any of it." Her voice cracked. "She told me you were happy to help, that you wanted to support the family. I thought you were okay with it." I studied her face, searching for a hint of manipulation, but all I saw was confusion and shame. "What didn't you know, Sophie?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "That you were paying the bills," she said. "That they took your college fund, that they sold your laptop to buy my phone. I thought they paid for it because I got a B on a midterm. I was so stupid." Her words hit me hard. For years, I'd seen Sophie as spoiled, entitled, the sister who got everything while I got scraps. But now, I wondered if she'd been manipulated too, fed lies to keep her dependent. "Why did you keep failing college?" I asked, the question slipping out. Sophie looked down, twisting her purse strap. "I hated business classes. Dad said they were the only real degrees, but I wanted to study graphic." It was the first time I'd heard her admit she had dreams of her own. "Why are you here, Sophie?" I asked directly. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. "This is $900, 0 cents, she said, for the phone. "I didn't know it came from your laptop. I'm so sorry." I opened the envelope, seeing the cash inside. It wasn't about the money. It was the gesture, her first step toward accountability. Before I could respond, Sophie kept going. "I found out more, Emma. Mom and Dad have been lying about everything. They've been in debt for years. Bad investments, credit cards. They used our trust funds to cover it." Her voice shook. "I thought I was the favorite, but they were just using me to keep you in line." The realization shifted something in me. Sophie wasn't the enemy, she was another pawn in our parents' game. "I'm done letting them control me," she said. "I got a job at an art supply store, and I'm reapplying to college for graphic design. Grandma's helping me." I felt a cautious warmth, like the first crack of sunlight after a storm. Maybe we could be sisters, not rivals. Meanwhile, the legal fallout was unfolding in Tucson. Grandma Margaret, true to her word, had arrived with her lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Wells. Patricia audited the trust funds, confirming Rachel's bombshell. My $20,000 0 cent fund was gone, siphoned off for Sophie's expenses and my parents' debts, while Sophie's fund was nearly depleted too. A settlement was reached after heated negotiation. My parents were ordered to repay $15,000, 0 cents of my trust fund, funded by selling their second car and taking out a loan. They also had to attend financial counseling. Margaret removed Dad as trustee, ensuring the remaining funds were protected. Rachel texted me updates. "Your parents are furious, but they can't fight this. Margaret's unstoppable." Mom tried to reach out, sending voicemails that swung from tearful to defensive. "Emma, we're still family," she'd say, or, "You've misunderstood everything." Dad's messages were colder, "You've torn this family apart." Neither took full responsibility, framing their actions as mistakes rather than years of abuse. I didn't respond. Dr. Lee helped me see that I didn't owe them forgiveness. Not until they owned their actions. That a firm boundary. No contact until they showed real change. It hurt, but it was freeing. Sophie's visit, though, gave me hope. As she left Rachel's, promising to keep in touch, I felt a spark of possibility. Our family was broken, but maybe something new could grow from the pieces. A year after that fateful birthday, I stood in my new Phoenix apartment, surrounded by flickering candles on a homemade chocolate cake. It was my 24th birthday, and the cozy space filled with secondhand furniture, desert plants, and framed photos of me and Mia was mine, thanks to a family discount from Grandma Margaret, who owned the building. The room buzzed with laughter as my guests mingled. Mia cracking jokes with a glass of lemonade, Aunt Rachel arranging a charcuterie board, Sophie sporting a new bob haircut that matched her newfound confidence, and Lucas, a coder from Nexus Innovations who'd become more than a friend over the past few months. Even Grandma Margaret was there, her sharp eyes softened by a proud smile. Looking around, I marveled at how far I'd come. A year ago, I was kicked out of my parents' house, my laptop sold, my future uncertain. Now, I was standing taller, surrounded by love. The past year had been a whirlwind of growth. I'd defended my thesis, graduating with honors despite losing my original research when my laptop was sold. Nexus Innovations offered me a full-time role as a social media coordinator, with benefits and a salary that let me breathe easier. Therapy with Dr. Lee helped me shed the guilt my parents had piled on, teaching me that my worth wasn't tied to their approval. Sophie's transformation was the biggest surprise. She'd enrolled in a graphic design program at a community college, thriving in a field she loved. She lived in a dorm now, her first taste of independence, and we'd started texting regularly. Silly memes, updates about her art, small steps toward a real sisterhood. 2 months ago, she'd given me a framed sketch she'd drawn, a desert sunset with 2 figures standing side by side. "It's us," she said, her eyes bright. Starting over, I hung it above my desk, a reminder of what we could become. My parents were a different story. Mom sent occasional cards, her handwriting shaky with apologies that never fully owned the years of financial abuse. "We miss you, Emma," she'd write, but her words felt hollow without accountability. Dad remained defiant, insisting I'd betrayed the family by exposing their secrets. I kept my boundary firm. No contact until they show real change. It wasn't easy, but Dr. Lee's words stuck with me. You can love them from a distance. Grandma Margaret became my anchor, calling weekly with stories about her youth and advice on navigating life. She'd taken Sophie and me under her wing, determined to make up for lost time. One evening, she pressed an envelope into my hand. "It's not a birthday gift," she said. "It's a legacy." Inside was a savings account number, a small fund from my grandparents' estate. "Build your dreams with it," she said, hugging me tight. As the cake's candles glowed, Mia shouted, "Make a wish!" I looked at the faces around me, people who saw me, valued me, not for what I could give, but for who I was. I closed my eyes and blew out the candles, the room erupting in cheers. "What do you wish for?" Sophie asked, her grin teasing. "Can't tell or it won't come true," I laughed. Truth was, I didn't wish for anything. For the first time, I was content. I'd built a life on my terms, with a job I loved, a sister I was learning to trust, and a future wide open. Lucas caught my eye, his quiet smile warming me. Rachel raised her glass, toasting, "To Emma, who turned pain into power." As we clinked glasses, I felt whole, ready for whatever came next. As I cleaned up the cake crumbs and hugged my guests goodbye that night, standing on my apartment's balcony with Phoenix's city lights twinkling below, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey. A year ago, my 23rd birthday was a nightmare. My laptop sold, my family's betrayed laid bare, my future uncertain, but that pain became my turning point. By standing up to my parents' abuse, setting boundaries, and choosing people who truly valued me, I'd built a life I'm proud of. Sophie and I are slowly becoming sisters, not rivals. My parents may never change, but I've found peace in letting go. That folder I left behind? It wasn't just a reckoning, it was my freedom. Some might see my story as one of loss, but I see it as a gift. The chance to start fresh, on my terms, surrounded by love. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family, to choose yourself, even when it hurt? Drop your story in the comments. I read every one, and your experiences inspire me. If this story resonated, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and ring the bell for more stories about turning pain into power, because here's the truth. The hardest choices, the ones that break your heart, often lead to the most beautiful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.